everybody. Arabel Alva Rosales here with Pivoting in Heels. So I'm really excited because we are going to bring to you this incredible interview. You know, we interview women that have made these great pivots in their life because we want to share them with you. And so you're going to get to hear from Kelly Tomblin, who is the CEO of Intren. It's a utility company, and she has been a leader in the utility industry for over 25 years. So she's the CEO at Intren now and really has done incredible work. I hope you tune in and make sure that you watch. Let's talk a little bit about, because you're the CEO of Intren.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit about how you got to that position. You've been a CEO a couple of times. What do you feel for women that are watching, and men too, because that's a huge position? What do you feel has prepared you for that position? And are you prepared? I mean, I'm sure you're getting things constantly thrown at you that you wouldn't even have planned for.
It's a funny story about that. I was speaking in a women's group in California while I was still the CEO of Jamaica Public Service, and I just happened to give a speech. And the prior CEO and the chairman, who has a great pivot story of this company, saw me speak. 2 years later, I got a call from her and said, "I'm going to retire. Would you like to be my CEO of my construction company?" I was like, I don't know anything about Illinois, not moving there, it's cold. 2, I don't know anything about construction, 0 Zippo, and no. But I fell in love with her vision about the company, and that's the reason I said, I think it relates to this idea about CEO. A CEO is a job that can be defined 100 different ways. And the way I define it usually is finding the best team, putting people in the right place, bringing out the greatness in others, creating an environment where people feel psychologically safe so we can find a vision that's bigger than ourselves. So I think for me, being a CEO is never about me. If it's all about you, none of us are that good. It frees me up to say, what's my job now? To put a group of people together that see the same vision, that work well together, that deliver something more than the sum of our parts, right? So for me, that's what a CEO is. And I keep saying this, and nobody, I don't know if nobody, but we're getting more and more comfortable with this idea. If you can't love, you can't lead. And I think for me, leadership has to be all about something. You say the word any way you want, but caring deeply about something, a purpose, the people with you. And I think when you get your heart right, your CEO-ness flows better.
I love that. So let's talk a little bit about, because you're the author of 100 Days of Doing Power Differently, right?
Right.
And Think Love. So interestingly enough, in the last couple of days, one of the things that I've been hearing is that in some of the top universities, one of the courses that didn't used to be taught but now is being taught, and a lot of people are gravitating to it, is a course on emotional intelligence. And it's an MBAs, and this is Stanford and Harvard, some of the top schools, because that's a component that, again, you're normally talking about finance, business, etc. But they're finding that that's a component that's extremely important for CEOs or for those in business to understand. And I was thinking of your book and how some of that goes into play. But tell us a little bit about how you see doing power differently.
Yes, I won't.
And how love comes into play.
Sure, I'm not going to underestimate the idea that you have to have strategic vision, you have to have some basics to be a successful business person, and you know that, and you're doing it.
Right.
But what I also know that is not enough. So the reason I wrote the book and the subsequent book that was revised, that book, Think Love, was 100 Ways of Doing Power Differently, 100 Days, was that we in Jamaica, and throughout my life, decided it was a good pun on words because we were an energy company, right? Do power differently. And we meant a lot of different things. We meant not just with fossil fuels, but renewables and smart grid. And then we also meant the concept of our personal power and our collective power in the world. We changed our vision to leading an energy revolution for the growth and prosperity of others, of the people of Jamaica. And I dedicated this book to the people of Jamaica and my leadership team there, and you'll see that on that front page. But the reason I wanted to capture, we really dug in deep over those 5+ years. I and my team had really hard conversations, and we wanted to capture that. So the 100 days or the 100 days right when I was getting ready to leave that we spent together in conversation about leadership topics. Some of them are about financial excellence. Others are about being vulnerable or being able to be seen, emotional intelligence, creating vision. There were 100 leadership topics that we had been in conversation, deep conversation together, and we'd come up with questions we believed every leader needs to ask to do power differently. The world is demanding a new form of leadership. It's not optional. People are no longer following blindly. They vote with their heart and their feet. And I think that Simon Sinek, Brené Brown, so many people are bringing to our forefront the idea that leadership must be redefined. The Me Too movement's reminded us so many things, right? So I think the reason I wanted to capture that was 100 different leadership topics. It is your own journal. It's a journaling book about your own wisdom, because there's so many leadership books. Go Google. There's like 200,000, I think, or 300,000 books on leadership. And there's a lot of wisdom in there, but I think there's so much wisdom in here that we don't pull out because we're all so busy and we're not reflective. So this book wanted to provide a guidebook for doing that. The subsequent book refined that book because I wanted to bring it out again, that this idea of what I've coined think, love leadership, that's bringing the masculine and the feminine, the heart and the head together. I'd say, strong mind, open heart, or open mind, strong heart, and how you bring them together to do great things in the world. So both books are journaling books. Both books are questions that I think beg for your own inner wisdom, but they're leadership topics that I think all leaders need to engage with in some way. So I love the phrase do power differently, because I do think power has been abusive. Power can be toxic. Going to work every day, for me, I hold this job as a CEO in a sacred space, because, like it or not, when you become somebody's boss, you become important to them. Now, we like to deny that because none of us feel important, but you know that when you're someone's boss, they're talking about you at the dinner table, you have their families in your hands. So for me, I said we need to back up and redefine what that means, this idea of power. And women skirt away from the word power because it sounds domineering, and I want us to feel like good about power.
You have to feel comfortable with
we have
power.
To get comfortable.
You have to get comfortable.
When I say it, people say, "Oh, I want to be confident. I want to be powerful." I go, can we redefine that? Power means being able to do good in the world.
Yeah.
Martin Luther King talked about, power without love and love without power. But this idea of finding your own personal mojo is important, because you can't change the world or change what's wrong or right the wrongs on a broken down system that doesn't feel like, yeah, bring it on. And I think we can do that together. So doing power differently really meant to bring it together for good in the world, create a work environment that is not toxic, but does something. You feel better when you leave work than you come. Wouldn't that be great?
Right. No, I think in the long run, that's what it's all about. I'm curious if a big part of where you're at now and the way that you look at power and the way that you incorporate, or want all of us to incorporate, love, did you living in Jamaica, did that make a difference for you? Did that...
It
sounds like you were working with that group, but it also the way that people are. Do you think if you wouldn't have been there?
I don't know if it happened as deeply, but I will say this. When I've been given positions of power early, and I was a president of a company when I was 39, and I remember, and a president of a smaller company before that, and I remember having a coach, and you don't forget some of these, and if we listen, we will hear it. I said, "How am I doing?" She said, "Oh, you're destroying people's lives." I go, "What?" She said, No, you're
not. Who did you ask this?
It's my coach.
Oh, okay.
I will say that I have been a recipient of diversity programs. I'm not going to deny that. They did give me coaches. I was a lawyer. They took me out of being a lawyer and let me be an executive, and I had coaching, so I was thankful for that. But you know how coaches sometimes just say, "Oh, you're okay." This coach did not say I was okay. And I really started to do deep personal work, journaling, yoga, meditating. And she used to say, "We're going to coach today. We're going to ground you," because I'm very high. And she'd say, "Okay, this is all we're going to do today." She would sit and tell me to put my feet down and breathe. And this was in 1995, before it became all new agey. But she said, in 1999, you are destroying people's lives. And so she started following me around and write stuff I would say. Little subtle things like, you would say something, I would say, "How possibly could you think that?"
Wow.
And you don't think anything. You're just a person. No, you're not just a person. You're the boss. And so I became hyper aware of words I say and how they impacted. I started, I had not felt what I felt when people screamed at me and called me whatever the names they called me, many over the years, my bosses, and how I felt demeaned. Then I started not cutting off my own feelings so I could get more connected and intimate with people and theirs. So I do think it came because 360 reviews, there's a lot of feedback that I had to take in. So I started on that process, but completely going to Jamaica, where I was the minority, but I was the CEO, and my kids were whitey, and it just started breaking me open. There's deep poverty, and there's deep love, and there's deep spirit. So it reminded me where I grew up in West Virginia, and it took me back full circle to community and what power could do. And I think when you're in a small environment, there's only 3 million people in Jamaica, that you have a bigger impact. So, and they were willing to engage in some pretty deep discussions, like how are we today? How are you today? And
sounds like bigger hearts there too.
Well, I don't know if it was them or, sometimes a moment in time you pick the right people. These are people I picked. I remember I went to a woman, Cherie Martin, and I said, Cherie, she was working in a bank. You got to come work for me. She goes, I don't know anything. I go, what are we going to do? I said, we're going to change the world. And she was like, she said it was she tells everybody, it was the dumbest interview ever. I'm applying for vice president of something in a utility company, and this woman's saying, come with me, we're going to change the world. But I think that had an impact. It was, how you're going towards something, you feel it, you're coming, and then there comes a moment where you have to jump in full in nakedness and heart and mind, and you have to be in a space. I think Jamaica provided that.
Okay. Well, I think there's a couple of things there that I love. So number one, you were open to coaching, which is what sounds like that's a huge piece. Real coaching. And I think coaches, if you have the honor of being put in that position, coaches who are listening or mentors, be real honest with that individual, because you can really guide them, and not be superficial about it, but get in deep and because that's what caring is about also, when you're telling the truth to that individual.
You know who the best coach is, and the thing that I have become so hyper aware of are the people that work for me and young women. I don't mentor young women as much as they mentor me now, and I love this collective mentoring. We used to say, I'm going to mentor you, young woman, I'm going to pour all my inner wisdom in you, and that's still true, but I am so open now to say, how am I being? And if you really open the space, I can't tell you the richness of that too. And get outside your own tribe, whatever, whether it's Jamaica, old, young, your race. I ask everybody, tell me, when's the last time you had dinner with someone outside your race? I ask my company that. One hand goes up, and I say, you don't count. You're married to somebody outside your race, right? So this idea, we've got our own little, and I think it's so bad now, because when I was growing up, we had 4 channels. We had to listen to people outside our belief system. Today, boy, we can just be straight down the fairway. People just like us, look like us, be like us, pray like us. And I think that's really doing us a disservice, because we don't get the full complement of human beings. So not only formal coaches, but ask for coaching. Put yourself in environments where you're going to question yourself.
Right. I know, and I think, being around people that have ideas that are different than yours, absolutely, you're always going to learn from those individuals. Yeah. And you sound like you've done all of those pieces. And it sounds like you kind of took a leap of faith with Jamaica going out there, but it ended up being the right choice.
And we're here too.
And then here in Illinois.
It's cold in Illinois.
You had quite a few cold days.
Warm.
Yeah.
Okay. But it sounds different, but it's just so much a leap of faith to say, I don't even know where we're going. And we got in the airport, and I was saying, where is this place? Crystal Lake, Union, where is? And I was interviewed 2 days later, and they go, where is Union? I was like, I couldn't even tell the guy. He probably thought I was the biggest idiot. I go, I don't know. It's 45 minutes from the airport. So there is this idea that go with your gut. There used to be a great reverence to feminine, not male or female, intuition. This thing about your mind's one thing, you study books, but there is another receptivity in your body that tells you the right way. Pay attention to that. We just cut that off. That doesn't count anymore. But I so tell me how you feel about it. Tell me how, feel is now a bad word. You have to think about it. But I do think giving really reverence to your inner wisdom, as new age as that sounds, is really important.
No, I think still there's a lot of people. There's the 2 areas, right? There's some that don't want to listen to that, and then there's a whole other group that are so into that. But I think I always listen to my gut. I've learned
Yes.
to trust it because
Mhm.
it usually is the best guidance, and sometimes I don't want to listen to it because for whatever reason I think I'm smarter than my gut, and at the end of the day it ends up being, you know, the right way to
Right.
go. So I want to really thank you for
thank
many
you.
things. I mean, you're a leader in many different levels in the industry that you're in as a CEO, for writing this book. You know, I think from what you were telling with the book and it being a workbook type of thing, it sounds like it'd be something that'd be great in universities, you know, for
Mhm.
people who are doing their
Leadership.
for leadership development and even their MBAs maybe. So thank you for doing that, because
Thank
that
you.
takes time and energy. I don't know where you find all
Well,
the time and energy.
I created
love
a
it.
model of leadership in it, and the Think Club stands for some things, and I just pointed out the Think is true self, and I give a whole workshop on finding and being true self, because the greatest temptation today is to imitate and wear masks, so we can talk about that. So the T was for that. The H was for higher purpose, and hard work with your higher purpose, but hard work doesn't feel like it with hard purpose. The I was, you've heard me say integrate. We are living in a vacuum, find your tribe and integrate. The N was this navigate your own ship. We're turning over I think the steering wheel to too many people, and we talk a lot about that. And then the K is something we talked about, combine your knowledge with your knowingness.
Mhm.
So not that one is bad or one is not, they're both equally great. And then the love is this practices, this L of listening and presence. We are not present anymore, not in our own bodies or with each other. So this idea of knowing how to listen to the world, listen to others, coaching, whatever. This O is optimism. It can be right now. I know for me, I have to really work on my sense of optimism, but great leaders find a way to paint not or unrealistic a picture that better will come if we do these things. So this, I don't know about you, I don't like to be around somebody that's always owing and awful. So I really believe in leadership and optimism go hand in hand. And then the V is vulnerability. Brené Brown, if you haven't read her, please do. She wrote a book, Dare to Lead. This idea of leaders who are not vulnerable, willing to be seen, willing to be wrong, or just ineffective. And E, and I'll finish on that, of the love is, manage your energy. Women walk into me all the time and want to talk about improving their career, and I'll talk about certain things, and they'll say, my boyfriend's cheating on me, and I feel terrible in my body. I go, that's not going to work. I mean, you have to look at the holistic part of manage your energy, take out people that are toxic. Take care of this physical thing. No, I'm not talking about, the being a little tiny thing. I'm talking about just respecting your body. So
loving yourself too.
Yeah.
Loving yourself.
And
It's really important.
that's the hardest thing ever. And I think I'm still on the journey, and I don't know about you. It's a constant thing.
It's a constant thing. We're always working on it.
So that's in the book, The Think Club, a new model for leadership. And I think that as we go about having a larger discussion in the world about what that leader looks like, I can't imagine some of those elements don't continue to be discussed.
Well, I'm glad you're being part of that discussion and leading that discussion. So, Kelly, thank you so much for being here with us. Thank you for being Pivoting in Heels.
And thank you for what you're doing, because I just think we women are stronger than we know, and men too, that we look at one path and never get attached to one. I love what Sheryl Sandberg said, life is a jungle gym, not a ladder, and being able to do things that are below you, quote unquote. I went to work in a power plant, I was a big M&A attorney, and be willing to, I think, meet that with a sense of joy. So pivoting and having confidence, but looking at it with a sense of joy and excitement and adventure. I think that is, I love that picture, and I love the concept. Pivoting in heels.